The government this morning under new pressure to clear the names of hundreds of sub-postmasters wrongly convicted in the Post Office Horizon scandal. Many say their lives have been utterly ruined.
Well, the Post Office is now being investigated by the police over potential fraud offences arising from its prosecution of staff. Faulty software was to blame. The scandal is the subject of a new ITV drama. Earlier, we spoke to Tim Brentnell, a sub-postmaster, who was wrongly convicted of fraud.
The biggest problem is the way that the Post Office has treated us all. Ropey IT systems exist everywhere, and they could have taken it just as it was, but they decided to prosecute us and then deny us justice for the last decade and fight us tooth and nail every way through the steps that we took to try and rectify it. But what we really feel, and I really feel we need the Post Office to be removed as arbiters of any compensation schemes, because they're the people that prosecuted us and denied us justice.
The Sun columnist Rod Liddle joins us now. Rod, morning.
Morning.
It feels simple, straightforward. These people were wrongly convicted. We now know that. Why is it that it is so complicated to get those people the compensation that they need?
It's the national disease, I think, which is we have far too many vast bureaucracies filled with self-serving middle managers who do everything they can to stop whistleblowers. We've seen it in the Post Office, obviously. I think probably the most criminal experience that anyone could have had, you know, with any of these bureaucracies. But we've seen it before with the National Health Service. We saw it with the attempts to bring Beverly Allett, the nurse, to justice in the health service, where whistleblowers were routinely told to get with the programme and stop moaning. And to continue working with Allett. We see it in the BBC every 3 or 4 months, and it's become a national disease that there are these vast bureaucracies filled with people whose job it is to keep themselves out of trouble and hang anybody else who might have noticed a problem within these organisations.
Rod, good morning. Good to have you on, my friend. Welcome to Monday. Really interesting what Tim Brentnell said there, ex-hub postmaster. And when you listen, we've been doing this since 6, we'll do it all morning. When you listen to these people who were pillars of the community, who not only knew they weren't breaking the law, but in many instances paid the money back because they were forced to, or by barristers saying to them, oh, look, if you pay it back or you plead guilty to fraud, you'll avoid this, you'll avoid that. I want to talk about the human cost, Rod, right? These people, people died having not cleared their names. People tried to commit suicide. A woman who's on at 9:20, Janet Skinner, 9 months in prison, 2 kids, told me, and will be on this morning, the terrifying moment that door shut. There is no accounting. You say, and I absolutely agree with you, it's symptomatic of what's happening in this country. I think this is one of the biggest and most disgraceful episodes ever. And I think the very least that damn woman should do, I think there should be a criminal investigation to Paula Venables, let alone a CBE going back, don't you?
Well, absolutely. Of course there should. And I suspect that somewhere down the line there will be. It's just that the wheels of justice, when it's for ordinary people, take an awful lot of time to get moving. They don't take a lot of time to get moving when it comes to prosecuting them, but when there's any redress involved, they take forever. And that's what we've seen this time. Because, again, it's an obvious point to make, but none of this would have come to light were it not for a drama series.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the ridiculousness of it. But it's very, very similar to what happened with the BBC and Savile, of course. When you have this coterie of middle managers, lawyers, and personnel people working so hard to preserve their own skins, it is very, very hard for the ordinary person to get justice. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. There are also, I mean, Ed Davey, obviously, leader of the Liberal Democrats, and an absolutely ghastly politician, should resign. I mean, he was the man.
Just for people tuning in, so we'll get some context there, Rod, because we've been doing it all morning.
Yeah.
Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, who spends his entire life asking for everybody to resign, was in charge of post offices for 2 years, told Times Radio a week ago, oh, I was misled. No, Sir Ed Davey, you need to stick your head above the parapet. The other thing I wanted to ask you, Rod, sorry, Rosie, is We talked about this before, the Met Police, when they marked their own homework. The
Yeah.
Post Office
Yeah.
is arbitrating the settlements for victims that they found guilty and treated so appallingly. That's the first thing Sunak needs to change, surely.
It is the first thing Sunak needs to change, and it's the first thing that needs to change in all these cases, because far too often it is left to the institution which made these appalling mistakes to rectify them, and that simply isn't good enough because, again, people are watching their backs. And the consequence of this, obviously, is that people have died, and there will be enormous compensation claims. I mean, enormous compensation claims going through the courts, which the taxpayer in the end will have to pay with, will have to fork out for. And I know that's not the crucial issue now. I know it isn't, and that money must be paid out. These people must get redress. But it happens time and time again that it's the taxpayer and the little man who pays out for failures of bureaucracy. And it simply cannot go on like this. We need some sort of bill to ensure that whistleblowers are listened to, taken seriously, and not persecuted, which is what.
At the risk of sounding old-fashioned and upsetting anybody, we seem to listen to people nowadays when they say, "I'm being bullied" or "I'm being, attacked because of my sexuality. There's not enough diversity." But hold on a second. These were good, hard-working people who sunk their lives and their dedication, who were ostracised, humiliated, completely and utterly thrown to the wolves by a system. These are the very people, the bedrock of this country, who pay their taxes, who should be looked after, shouldn't they?
Of course they should. Of course they should. There's no question about that at all. And this isn't a case of bullying. I mean, there are so many issues which come up here. One of them is our propensity to believe software, which again is something which is common to so many institutions in our country. Oh, the computer stuff must be right. It's got to be right. It's an unbiased arbiter. It is very, very often wrong. People have to be listened to, and I think after Rishi Sunak has done the important first step of making sure that these people get their compensation, that they get their exonerations and their pardons, and after he's ensured that woman loses her CBE and is subjected to police investigations, then the next thing is the more general point about trying to make sure that whistleblowers in any institution, any semi-government institution, must be listened to, and that there is a kind of ombudsman who will take on their case.
The Justice Minister today is having conversations about what process could be put in place to exonerate people en masse. The question will be why this hasn't already happened and why it took a drama series to start asking those questions. For now, Rod, should we move on to
Rob, we got to do this with you. My favourite story of the morning, all over the Rosie. It's just extraordinary.
By-election in what was Peterbone's constituency. There seems to be some kind of concern, maybe amongst the Conservatives, that Peterbone was going to stand as an independent. In order to try and stave that off, they've got a candidate. It's Peterbone's girlfriend.
Mrs. Bone. Yes,
What's
so
right.
Mr. Bone, again, just for people just tuning in, and he denies the allegations, was asked to resign as a Tory MP in Wellingborough, North Hampshire, for allegedly flashing to a male colleague. These allegations he strenuously denied. The Tories, Rod, who are no good at damn optics, think it would be a good idea to have his partner stand instead. What is wrong with politicians, man?
Yes, it's remarkable, isn't it? It's also very particular to that area of the country. There's this little bit of Northamptonshire which has got the most right-wing Conservative MPs, and they've all got names which are kind of skeletal. There's Peter Bone, and I think next door there's Philip Hollowbone. I mean, they're all ghouls. It's quite remarkable. I think the country's given up on. We've talked about this before, mate. The country's given up on the Conservative Party. My guess is that Peter Bone's constituency is one of the safest in the country. I haven't looked it up, but it's got to be pretty safe. I cannot see the Conservatives winning there. It just won't happen. I think we've all had enough of them, and I don't think they grasp the degree of animus which the country feels towards them. I just don't think they get it.
Rod, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, Mondays, my friend. Thank you, Rod.
Cheers,
brilliant.
Never a shortage of stories to dissect, you know.